do that, not knowing whether neighbors could maybe have a meetup with you and Bob Harari to see where they are as far as their responsibility towards the repaving, the how, when, and where, so that we can, you know, really address this problem and perhaps even be able to elevate it once you have those face-to-face meetings and on-site and really take a look at it. Because with the impending storm seasons that we may have next year, they may lose their road. And so I think there's probably a good solution that Bob is very creative, and so are you. And I think the neighbors would appreciate very much a face-up meeting to really get to the nitty-gritty of what it's going to take. So that's just my input on that.
We can absolutely do that, Councilmember. Thank you.
All right, other questions or comments?
Yeah, a question on the same subject on the drainage. A couple of meetings ago, we had a conversation about the $500,000 and about spending, you know, half of it or more than half of it in, you know, in actual drainage projects rather than sort of continuing all the studying that we're doing. And I don't really see that verbiage reflected in the description of the project. It's a little too vague for me. So I'm wondering if you agree to that, if we could change the verbiage in the budget book so it indicates, you know, sort of our agreement from a couple meetings ago. If
it's not clear, sir, I mean, that was certainly our intention, both for drainage as well as the work with our revetment, seawalls, and staircases. It was. I'm talking about, you know, specifically the $500,000 for the drainage. Yes, sir. That was our that's built into the budget, which is not just doing design work; it's design and build. So we'll get some things constructed. I think it said, you know, I think there was the adjective used there was sort of spot repairs, and to me that sounded a little bit like fixing some berms rather than doing some actual drainage, you know, changing some pipes so that they're the right size and altering the flow of water and whatnot. And so maybe just that verbiage could be a little bit clearer. Yes, sir. We'll clear that up.
All right, any other questions? This is to receive the presentation, which we've done, and provide direction. I think the direction is we're going to see this back for the final adoption, but if there are questions or concerns, now would be a good time. We do have some requests for some supplemental funding, $120,000 from the Chamber, $120,000 for the Visit Carmel group, and also the $50,000 quarterly or annual contribution to the youth center. I'm not prepared to move on those items yet until I hear more specifics about what is proposed. I mean, I don't have a problem with investing money, but I want to know where it's going to be invested. So, you know, with the youth center, I met with them. They're going to go ahead and come up with a plan on how they're going to get back full-time child care. That's going to be complicated. We've got the Chamber has also got new leadership. I'd be interested in hearing what Lance's thoughts are on what that investment would look like. And also then we've got the Visit Carmel group also. So if they want to get more specifics about that, they've got a week or so to go ahead and try to get some more specifics there. Right now, I'm not prepared to move on any of those items.
Mr. Mayor, I agree with you, especially with the Carmel Youth Center. I'm really troubled with what they sent in. It was just so brief, and we need much more information about what kind of a plan they have for operation. And I actually would like to see some of their past financials and maybe even do an audit on what's happened, because I'm concerned with a lot of these groups that, you know, they have donors, they do fundraisers, that kind of thing, and everyone seems to have their hand out, and it's everyone's expecting the city to give them money, and it's not a bottomless, endless pit here that we're just able to hand out money to everyone. I mean, I'm concerned, as I spoke last time at our meeting, with the budget and the spending, and I mean, we've gone from 32 million to almost 41 million, and I don't feel comfortable with that. I feel that that's really irresponsible, especially when we're hearing about economic downturns and conditions with the economy. I would like us to find ways to cut our budget and certainly cut the CIP and be more careful and more cautious with the money that we're giving out to these groups. It's not to say that these are bad groups or anything like that, but what's saying is that we need to have more of an understanding of what they're doing and why they can't get some more money from our community and from fundraisers as well.
Well said. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Supervisor. I mean, Councilmember Ferlito and then Councilmember Barrett.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank the staff for an excellent presentation and for all the hard work. This is an enormous, enormous task to put all this together, all the wants, all the needs, all the revenue sources and so on, and they make it pretty understandable. At first it's a little daunting, but I think our budget as it is, without cuts, reflects an investment in our community, one that is long overdue. And I believe our community safety is about investing in the health of our whole community. And our whole community involves affordable housing, green spaces to enjoy, living wages for our staff, access to healthy activities, and so on. And we have been waiting many years for some of these projects, many years. They're long overdue. 2 years during COVID, the CIP budget was cut completely. And if you looked at that $10 million CIP budget carefully, 3.3 million of that is the police department, which probably should have happened years ago. So if you subtract that out and then you divide the leftovers by 3 years of work, it's not outrageous, and it is an investment. It's an investment for all of us. And there are pieces in here that really create a safer, more enjoyable community. So I commend the staff. I commend for you for the suggestion to use our fund balance to get some of these projects that have been waiting for so long done. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Anybody else?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yeah, working off of my council members to the right, I don't think we've seen Sunset Center here over the course of the past months, and maybe Beth came to public comment a few last month or the month before, but one of the things in the Sunset Center agreement is that the Sunset Center Corporation is responsible for raising money for an endowment. And I would like to get, Councilmember Dramoff spoke a few minutes ago about groups that have access to money, and I think that that's one of those groups, and I would like to sort of get an update on whether that's happening, what we can do to get that started. I'm sort of carrying Carrie's torch here. She used to bring that up every single year, and now that she's not here, I guess I'll do that. So it would be nice to get an update on that. And then, Councilmember Folito asked a question about TOT, and I sort of unfairly grilled Max about her verbiage a few minutes ago. But I think that we talked about revenue sources, and I think our TOT is a little out of whack for the destination that we are. And I think that we should have a conversation, at some point, over the course of the next year, maybe before the next budget, or maybe before the election in 2024, about raising the TOT. And I'm not. We should have a community discussion about it and decide whether that's what the council and the community wants to do. Thank you.
All right, any other comments? I'd just comment that I've said before, I think this is a fascinating read. Actually, when you go ahead and take a look at the item that we're going to do, which is next is the audit report, I think it's actually a very, very interesting testimony to the complexities of government. I've become such a policy wonker, idiot, not geek, I guess, not idiot, but geek, that I actually got the budget out during Mother's Day dinner this weekend. Because my cousin-in-law challenged me about what we were spending on public safety and what we were spending on the, basically, where our major source of incomes were. So I pulled it out real quickly. And he's a numbers guy. He thought it was a very, very well done book. But it's kind of sad that I actually now find it more interesting to discuss numbers at Mother's Day dinner than Mother's Day itself. So. So anyway, so that said, before you get the report before us, I don't think we need any formal action. We've provided some direction. We'll deem it received, and we'll go ahead and see it next month in its final form. Okay, so now let's move on then to the final item, which is going to be a brief presentation by Sheldon Chavez, I think. Yes, about the annual comprehensive financial report, fiscal year ending 2022, June 30th.
Didn't it used to be called the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report?
Yes, sir.
Wasn't it? Did the acronym somehow change
Yes, sir.
from last year to this year?
A couple years ago, sir, yes.
A couple years ago? I missed it last year.
Welcome,
Good
Sheldon.
evening. Yeah, the acronym, the previous acronym turned out to be a word that is unfavorable to certain cultures, so they changed it to ACFR. Yeah. And tried being a CPA that's been using that one term for 23 years, and all of a sudden you have to use a new one. So, but I got it down, ACFR. So, and by the way, if you're a CPA on Mother's Day or birthday or Christmas and you try to talk about what you do for a living, everybody just stops listening. So there you go. And that's why I also avoid talking about deferred inflows and outflows at board meetings and council meetings. So here we are, June 30, 2022. I appreciate the fact that we're discussing the 23-24 budget. You're well past the 22-23. We've got the California May revise out. But it's important to look back at that June 30, 2022 audit and see what the auditors have to say about it. And the one thing I want to point out first and foremost is its management is responsible for the financial statements, right? And that management role rolls right up into the city council. And our responsibility as an auditor is to let the people know, the public know, let any readers or anyone that may be relying on the city's financials, whether or not the financial statements are free of material misstatement. And we provide that with a reasonable assurance. We say in our opinion letter, these financial statements are or are not free from material misstatement. Now, keep in mind, a reasonable assurance is a very high level of assurance, right? It's not absolute, but very high level. We perform our audits with about a 90% level of confidence, right? And so in doing that and in creating that audit plan, we're able to perform successfully, in this case, the objectives of the audit, which is to say that the opinion letter is not modified. Right? So we are saying that they are free of material misstatement. Short way to say that, clean audit. So some things that you'll notice in the audit if you happen to dig in Mother's Day and take a good read is that the opinion letter is quite different than it has been in the past. Right? It's a better presentation in my opinion. No pun intended. And the point is that the opinion itself, what we have to say about the financial statements, whether it's from error, fraud, compliance, what we have to say about it in our letter is right up front, the very first paragraph, right? Our report on the financial statements, second line, opinion. Very much, I should say this better, it is a better presentation than it was in the past. In the past, you'd have to dig into page 2 of our opinion letter to see what our opinion was, which I felt was ridiculous. So a good job to the standard setters on that one. So generally accepted auditing standards did a good job in reformatting this opinion letter so it makes more sense. You get to see the auditor's responsibilities. You get to see that we exercise professional judgment in our audit. We maintain our professional skepticism in the audit, which means we don't trust your staff. We don't trust management. Right. We don't build relationships where we become friends. So you'll never find me out having a beer with your city manager. Right? Won't happen. We identify and assess risk. That's a big part of the audit. Thanks to Laurel, Common, and Ron, going way back now. We spend a lot of time documenting internal controls. We decide whether or not testing controls can help us in the audit. And if we decide it can help us, not only will we test them, but we'll test them in depth. And that's a big part of our risk assessment. And the whole game plan is to really assess risk on those areas that may lead to a material misstatement. So where are the risks of material misstatement? All right, so that's a key concept, materiality. When we're doing this, we're also focused on obtaining an understanding of internal controls at the department levels, at the higher end levels, at the financial reporting and closing level. And of course, then we're looking at the appropriateness of accounting policies and procedures. And then overall, we're concluding on whether or not, in our judgment, there are conditions. Now, here's the key. There are conditions that exist that could tell us that there's a lack of going concern, right? The city will not exist 1 year beyond the date we release our opinion, the date we issue our report. So that's a big deal. You wouldn't have seen that in the opinion letter in the past, by the way, and now you'll find that in the opinion letter. So in our opinion, the city's not going to close its doors anytime soon. So there's that. And I think that 23-24 budget does support that. Got a lot in there fairly quickly in terms of really the overall objective, responsibilities, unmodified opinion. I will say that we did not find any material weaknesses in the audit. We did not report any control deficiencies that we felt needed to be reported at this level. There's things that we always find and deal with management as we're working through the year. The one hiccup we had this year that didn't result in a finding, surprisingly enough, to be honest, because oftentimes it does, is that we did have turnover with your management team for the June 30, 2022 audit. So the people that were there in finance for the 22 fiscal year weren't there for the actual audit, right? So we did the interim audit with that team, and then for the year-end portion of the audit, the substantive procedures where we do the trial balance testing, cash, investments, capital assets, long-term debt, we had a new team. And so then in that process too, you had a person come in and that person left, and we had a new person come in, you had a consultant come in. So that made it difficult because now we have delays in the audit. Now, mind you, my team also experienced turnover because we had 4 people that left during our busy season. And of those 4 people, 3 of them went on paid leave because of medical issues, right? And we're a firm of 15 people. So either way, we might have ran into a problem with delays. So we did run into some delays this year. However, as you can see, unmodified opinion and no material weaknesses. So the city was able to overcome those turnover issues, and we were able to overcome ours and issue a report that should meet the GFOA standards, by the way, for the Certificate of Award Financial Reporting, and definitely, in my opinion, is free of material misstatement. I'm not going to get into the details of the financials in this presentation, but if you do have questions specific to those financial statements, I'll be happy to answer them. One thing I will say is that your net pension liability as of June 30, 2022 went down by about $8.4 million. That's mostly because of the investment gains in the plan, in the pension plans for that measurement period. Keep in mind it's 1 year behind the audit, were in excess of the estimates. So they realized investment returns well above the estimates included in the actuarial reports. And so that net pension liability took a fairly large dip. However, it's going to go right back up. As you can see in the last year or so, the market didn't do so great. So it's a short-term kind of dip in the net pension liability in terms of the actuarial studies. Now keep in mind, it's a little bit different from the unfunded actuarial liability and the plans that you see that determine the annual required contributions, which are more driven by those discount rates. Okay, that was a lot. Any questions or comments?
Sheldon, well done. Are there any questions to Sheldon by the council members at this time? Let's see if there's anybody in the public who wants to speak to this item. Is there anybody in the public wishing to speak to this item? I didn't think so. All right. Okay, well, Sheldon, I want to thank you for this presentation. You know, actually, if you take this and you go ahead and say, oh, excuse me, does anybody in the Zoom want to speak to this? All right. So, I think that one of the things that's also advantages, this is a great tutorial, a primer on how the government actually operates. Areas of responsibilities, their opening parts to this are really good about telling us, you know, who's responsible for what the council's supposed to be doing, general structures of government and city services we provide. I think it's a good job. I also think we should commend ourselves on having received a certificate of achievement from the United States, the Government Finance Officers Association, the United States and Canada. So I think 2 years in a row, and maybe we'll get the one for the next year too, but we've done to get it for 2 years in a row. I'd love to get one for this coming year. I think it's submitted it, right?
Yeah, we did submit, right? Yes, yes.
Yeah.
We did all the work for it, so I hope so.
Well, hopefully we'll continue on and march to success. So thank you.
All right, thank you.
We want a motion to receive the report. Yeah, I think we
So
do.
moved.
It's a resolution.
Okay.
Oh, I have to read the resolution.
No, you don't have to read it, it's just a resolution.
Needs adoption though.
Yeah.
Oh, she's moved adoption.
I move adoption.
Second.
A motion is second. No, could we get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Barron?
Yes.
Councilmember Jerimoff?
Yes.
Councilmember Ferlito?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Richards?
Yes.
Mayor Potter?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Our work here is done. Well done, guys.
I
Appreciate
do
it.
have one question about this. Do copies of this go to the library and other places for the public to be able to enjoy reading them? It will be available on the website. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, we stand adjourned. Thank you all. Done. Good job.